Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, ITAPA. And I apologize for my English, but I need to present it in English because it's a European initiative, and so it's in line with the context we are addressing. Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So my task is to maintain your attention focus, even if it's a very long day, very interesting day, but I know at this time you're maybe pretty tired, so I hope I will do my best to keep your focus on it. Okay, let's see if, yeah. Okay, you already know me, and just to tell you, I am technical leader of the MiSafe project, which will be the project I am presenting to you. And for Deep Blue, I also design and deliver training courses on human factors for different clients, including the European Space Agency. Today we addressed space operations, and that's why I am mentioning it, and Eurocontrol and Leonardo. And I am a psychologist as a background, postgraduated in psychotherapy, so I also provide psychotherapeutic support. So let's move to our topic of today, which is about MiSafe, that stands for Mental Health for Aviation Safety. Before Alessandra said safety is a human factor, so safety depends on us as humans. And this is the topic in MiSafe. We take it seriously in the sense that we address the safety impact of mental health issues. This is an initiative that is funded by EASA. EASA launched procurement on it, and Deep Blue awarded the project. We started the last year, so we are in the middle of the project. And the strategic aspects are that this initiative is meant to have a direct applicability into new updated, I would say updated, acceptable means of compliance of the Part Med regulation, which are about the licensing of pilots and air traffic controllers. And in fact, the scope of our project is to provide guidelines for early diagnosis and assessment and treatment of mental health conditions that could pose safety risks. And would consequently lead to pilots and air traffic controllers' unfitness or the limitation of their licenses. And our project is targeted to aeromedical examiners and assessors. So we would like to help them assess mental health conditions that could pose safety risks. Why? Why do we need MiSafe? Do we need, no, I mean, do we need this kind of initiative, this kind of support to AMEs? After the Germanwings accident that Michaela explained this morning, so you know what the accident was about, the safety investigation report, that is a very interesting document, provided some findings. And among them, there is a section about the self-declaration principle, telling that the mental incapacitation risk management is was currently, maybe is, partially based on the assumption that the applicant will self-declare his decrease or her decrease in fitness. Is this principle prone to failures? We know, yes, sadly, yes. And the Germanwings accident demonstrated that we cannot rely on this principle in all the cases. We know that Andreas Lubitz was aware of his decreased fitness, but didn't report it to the aeromedical examiners. It is out of the scope of this presentation to address the mental complaints of Andreas Lubitz, but what we find in the report is that maybe these factors impacted and prevented him to self-declare his decreased fitness, not only altered the mental abilities and decision-making capacity due to his mental complaints, but also fear for financial loss, for the need to review his professional ambitions, and of course, decreased self-esteem in case of loss of license. Is this an isolated case? Was it an isolated case? We sadly know no. And we know that mental health problems may be undetectable to AMEs sometimes, even if they do their best to treat information confidentially and keep the applicant to fly or control air traffic as long as possible. And what the AMEs told us is that sometimes the applicants don't disclose information. Why? Because on the other hand, the Andreas Lubitz is one example of a situation when an applicant doesn't disclose his mental health issues because there is a mental disorder. But other times, applicants perceive threats to their careers. They are afraid to permanently lose their license. And this is enough to prevent self-disclosure sometimes. And also, when there is, in organization or environments where the blame culture and the stigma towards mental health issues is strong, the probability, it's not rare that missed self-declaration may happen. What is an example? Could you think about an example of stigma towards mental health? Robert Borg, for example, provided some interesting examples before. He said, we are all psychologists, but outside our community, many people think mental disorders are permanent, terribly disabling, or not. Do you agree? Instead, we have our manuals, for example, the Diagnostic Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM, but also the ICD provide more than 500 mental disorders, and they are not all the same, they are not all permanent. Many of them are temporary, and you can completely recover from them. So this is one example of possible stigma, and when there is stigma, higher the stigma, lower the probability of self-declaration. It's just a natural self-protective behavior that people may apply because, especially when they are within systems with inherent structural weaknesses. So stigma is a weakness. Aeromedical examiners, the climate that aeromedical examiners build can be another weakness or protective factors when there is a good climate, when there is how can I say, trust between them. But I will tell it later on when I will explain our initiatives in the project. And in fact, sorry, there is a lot of text, but you will find this information also on the website of the project. But basically, we would like to fill some gap and to build some barrier by providing some protective barrier, of course, I mean, by providing these results that we expect to have at the end of the project. I will only read the black titles to be short. We would like to provide a mental incapacitation risk assessment methodology and guidance material targeted to AMEs to recognize mental incapacitation events. And the risk they could pose to safety. Then we would like to provide policy-making recommendations, which is high-level objective of the project, and a human-centered toolkit targeted to peer support groups and AMEs, of course with different content, but which is about mental health disorders, how to detect preclinical signs and symptoms, just to be proactive also. What we achieved so far, we have built a stakeholders group, and here we have some members of our stakeholders group, and and then we build a glossary of psychological terms to try to disseminate right knowledge about mental health and mental disorders. And we released 3 technical documents, which are the first documents of the project, and I will show you some findings from them. This is our stakeholders group. Sorry, there is a lot of text, but this is just to show that we tried to keep on board the relevant stakeholders, which are, of course, aeromedical examiners and policymakers, but also pilots and air traffic controllers, because they are the other side of the coin. And so we are involving all these stakeholders to have a look about gaps and needs from these different perspectives. In order to collect the point of view of our stakeholders, we have launched online surveys. The first one is this, and was targeted to AMEs, and we are publishing very soon the results. And we asked them, what problems do you have when you perform mental health assessment, when you have to certificate the mental fitness of your applicants? Are you curious to know what they replied? We were. And these are the top 7 challenges that they mentioned. They struggled with opposing attitudes, they say. So 26 mentions were about missed self-disclosure. So this is an indication for us to build training, maybe, provide guidelines, build processes. And then too little time allocated to assess mental fitness of applicants, absence of validated questionnaires and interviews. There is a debate about what tools have to be used. Insufficient cooperation among AMEs and mental health specialists. This is very important and was mentioned many times. They want to collaborate with aviation psychologists. They are asking it. They miss this cooperation a lot. And in fact, when we ask them, what problems do you face today, which is at the bottom of the slide, they told us, I don't know how to collect information about mental health. I feel alone. Do you agree? Yeah, and it's difficult for me to detect signs and symptoms on mental health without expert advice. And they also told us it's difficult for me to understand when I have to call the mental health specialist and what, for what questions, what kind of support do I have to ask? And we asked them, what would you like to have? If we could ameliorate the process, what would you like to get? They want standardized questionnaires and interviews. We are working on it, but I will explain you later. And they would like also to monitor the applicants with respect to psychosocial history, medical history, professional life, because otherwise they only see applicants once a year on average. And this is difficult when you have to monitor and to support an applicant. And if you see in this slide, they are asking a collaboration with mental health specialists and support groups, peer support groups. What happens in between two aeromedical examinations? That's why our dream would be to provide some guidelines on the cooperation processes between aeromedical examiners and peer support groups and mental health specialists. But for the moment, it's important to highlight that aeromedical examiners would like to cooperate more with these professional profiles. I said we are working on a glossary on psychological terms, and we did it in form of cards. You can see on the right side of the slide. We publish every Monday one of our cards about mental health, so we just disseminate basic knowledge for general public and aeronautical public, so this is not targeted to psychologists, just to try to reduce stigma. You can find them on our social channels, so if you want to follow us, you can contact us on LinkedIn. Don't be scared, because I will be short. I told you we released our first 3 reports. They are available on the website of MeSafe, which is a section of the EASA website. So if you Google EASA MeSafe, you will find us, and you will find our documents. They are about state-of-the-art diagnostic and treatment options for mental disorders and substance abuse. We each of all our documents end with take-home messages that we want to follow up in the next phases of the project. This is a selection, of course, a short list. I already addressed that mental health, no, I didn't, but other presenters did. Mental health problems can lead to incapacitation, so we have to take them seriously. But there are more than 500, and they are not all the same, and they are not all disqualifying, and they are not all hazardous. And of course, mental health does not only depend on us. Mental health depends on how we manage our life, of course, but life-changing events and work-related stressors also play a role, and that's why we would like to take them on board in our proposed recommendations. Yeah, I will be short on this, but to assess the risk of mental incapacitation, we don't want to look only on diagnosis of mental disorders, but also to the presence of life-changing events, the comorbidities with other problems, maybe physical problems, and also we want to have a look at protective factors that I can see there isn't in the slide, but it's something that we want to consider also, because even when we have a mental issue, we can have protective factors and we can have mitigation measures. And this is also something we will work on in the next stage of the project. I have said there is a debate around tests. MISAFE will not endorse any test as a gold standard, because it's impossible to predict behavior only with tests. But of course, tests can support an assessment, but have to be combined with an interview. We will not. We do not intend to provide a detailed interview, but maybe we will provide some guidelines on topics to be addressed during the interview. This is what we achieved so far. So based on the state of the art, we highlighted what we want to work on. So we want to work on the interview, the trust, the reducing stigma, and so on, the cooperation processes with mental health specialists, and the risk assessment methodology, which is a task we are engaging in now. What I can say for the moment is that we will provide a risk assessment which is based on mental incapacitation events and the probability and the severity of these events for the safety of operations. Of course, levels of severity and probability may change according to the kind of operation, so single pilot is different from multi-crew and so on. And we want to follow this work up with mitigation measures in case temporary or permanent loss of license has to be applied. We have just launched an online survey for pilots and air traffic controllers because we want to collect their point of view on gaps and needs about the aeromedical mental health assessment. So that's it. And for more information, go on our website, and thank you for your attention.